580, welcome to week 6. I come to you from the rainy outdoors of Sacramento, California area. I hope you all are doing well. If you have today off, like many districts do, I hope you enjoy time with your friends and family in a safe manner, obviously. And if you work today, I hope your work day goes well. Before we get into week 6, a little bit about week 5. I've not graded the assignment yet, but I've looked through them quickly, and everything looks really good from everyone. For those of you that reached out to me and said, hey, I got this or that going on, thank you for reaching out and letting me know. Moving, week 7, week 8, and into 605, it's always important to reach out if you need a little bit of extra time because of an extenuating circumstance. And for those of you that are going through some health issues with family, I pray that all is well. The discussion posts in week 5 and actually week 4 and week 5 have been very, very active. And I would say keep it up. There's a lot of good sharing of information and feedback on your writings from each other. And that's just going to make everything, your assignments and your capstone project so much stronger. So keep that up. But let's jump into week 6. The more you know who you are and what you want, the less you let things upset you. And that's Bill Murray's character, Bob Harris, in Lost in Translation. I didn't love that movie. When it came out, it was a big deal. Like, everyone's talked a lot about it. But I love that line. It stuck out to me when I first watched it. And I think it goes back to the idea, Simon Sinek, of circle of control versus circle of concern, which essentially says we should only focus on the things we can control. And when we start focusing on the circle of things, let me say that differently. When our concern starts being bigger than our circle of control, we breed frustration and ineffectiveness. Essentially, that we need to focus on what we can control because there's so much we can't. And if you can't control it, it's wasted energy and effort to be worried about it. And so I love that thought. When I was a teacher at high school and even vice principal in middle school, that's something I would use all the time with students, and now I use it a lot with staff, just to let them know that, like, hey, we got to let go of the things we can't control because it's going to actually make us less effective. And no one wants to be less effective. So jumping into the content, there are 2 chapters this week, so there's more reading this week. Chapter 5 in the Bassett text and Chapter 7 in the Efron text. There's going to be a lot of really good background information to help drive you this week. There is an article, the link is there, and it is 7 pages, so it's not super long, but the triangulation method is really important for your capstone moving forward. So I would say, though it's only 7 pages, 1, it's dense, there's a lot of text, a lot of small text. Plan on rereading this a couple times to really understand it and get through with it, because this triangulation method is going to be extremely important for your capstone project in your research. So just scrolling through it, you can see the last 2 pages aren't necessarily text that you have to read. It's the references and a little ad, but there are about 5 solid pages of a lot of dense information. I don't know, for you, some people really love the idea of close reading. For me, I just have to read something multiple times to really digest it. So make sure you do that. It's a really, really good read. And then there is a video that you've seen actually before, the Teaching Ethics and Research Methodology, that's been, and it's an hour. So you're going to have to set some time to watch this video, and there's a little bit of text there, but it's really important to set up, once again, with the triangulation article, your research methods for your capstone. So that's going to be an important read. So this week you're going to have to set it aside, I would say 3, maybe 4 hours to digest the content alone. So make sure that you have that time. The discussion question, there's only one. It's talking about project map. So now that you have articulated your research in Chapter 1, reviewed in Chapter 2, and are deciding upon your methods in Chapter 3, so those are the 3 main parts that you've done so far in this class, it's time to map out the project. So in the discussion post, this is all in a paragraph form, but I broke it up into bullet points just so you know the parts you really need to hit. So you're going to state your questions, a brief summary of what you learned about the topic, 2 or 3 additional data collection tools that you'll use to triangulate the data, and then how these tools will help you answer your research questions. So those are the 4 main points for this discussion post, and I'm actually really excited to see the back and forth, just going from how you guys interacted with last week's question on literature review, how you give feedback to each other. So that is a substantial discussion post, but it's really to get you thinking critically about mapping out your research project. And so assignment 4, that's this week. You're going to be working on chapter 3. I will go to that in 1 second, but I really want to, once again, the assignments are getting heavier, and so I wanted to bullet point out what specifically it's asking for, and I'll jump over to that document here in a second. But you're going to discuss your current or past setting. Remember, no identifiable information for students or staff. You just use pseudonyms. You don't want to violate any privacy or protection there. What's your role as the reflective researcher? What were your data collection methods? So you have to have your critical reflection journal. Did you use open-ended qualitative surveys, observational journal? So how did you get that information? What's your plan to triangulate your research? So the analysis of your data. And then a big key, and I know I mentioned this last week, is it's recommended to write in past tense, because in 605, your whole capstone project really should be in past tense anyway. So in order to not have to go back and rewrite that, make sure you put it in past tense. This should hit 4 to 6 pages. I know we don't love the idea of length guides. If you can do something well, that's the main point. It shouldn't be 2 pages. It shouldn't be 10, right? But somewhere around 4 to 6-ish is really kind of the guide where we see most of these assignments hit that effectively do what they need to do. Once again, I'll bounce over there in 1 second. I just want to mention, looking ahead, the content next week, there isn't any content. There's 2 discussion questions, and you are starting on your final work for the capstone proposal. So week 7 and week 8 is when the heavy workload starts hitting. So next week, no content. So know that there'll just be a couple questions and starting that big work. So let's go over real quick, and you can see here, this is where I got those bullet points. Once again, I know some people prefer to see it in paragraph form. For me, I really want to visualize it in that bullet form of what's asked. But once again, your role, your past setting, your collection methods, how you're going to analyze that data and triangulate it, and then write in past tense. So it's actually, for a bigger project, a really short rubric. So it's explaining your professional setting. If you want to be over here in the 5-point column, which I know every master's student loves to check off every box and every point. Purposeful, refined, correct language, formatting, consistent, exceptional reflection, all that kind of good stuff. So there's your setting, the role of your researcher, reflective exploration. So it just goes through those bullet points, and there's a rubric for each part. So if you have questions, please reach out. You guys have been really good at that. But other than that, have a great week 6.